where I lived on Newtonards Road in McMaster Street, on the Easter Monday Blitz, our house got a direct hit from an incendiary bomb, which wasn't one of the explosive types of bomb, but it set the house on fire. We were able to, with the help of the air raid wardens and that, who were all volunteers, were able to put that out, but the house was very badly damaged. And it was after that my mother decided that I should be shipped off to the country for safety. Mm-hmm. Well, I was shipped off, as I say, almost immediately, but my mother had to work and her brother had to work. But they got Granny and Grandpa a room out at Drumbow. They rented a room. Granny had a butter and egg lady come into the market every week, and her name was Mrs. Strain, and they asked could she give Granny and Grandpa a room, and they went to live down at Drumbow in this one room. But my mother, of course, couldn't leave Belfast because she had a job and she was the breadwinner. And Andy, of course, in those days when you had a job you held on to it. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of men who stayed behind and let their families go. My husband was an evacuee, but he went with his mother and his brother to relatives in Maghaberry. And a lot of children maybe would have had relatives in the country that they would have been shipped off to, but not all children had that. When I went to Fermanagh, I went into a different world completely. There was no war in Fermanagh. And the lovely family that I lived with, I think, protected me. And when there were stories about air raids, maybe on the news or something, now no television in those days, but they did have a small radio. And when there were stories about air raids, I never heard them. So it was as if I was in a completely different world. I suppose in a way I missed my mother, but my mother was, to her great credit, she came down once a month to see me, you know, and wrote to me. We were great letter writers, she and I, and we wrote, and no phones, of course. Mm-hmm. The government had a scheme that children were sent, the country people, the farmers, didn't have an option. If they had the accommodation, they were required to take an evacuee, or maybe two evacuees. If there was brother and sister or two brothers or something, they had to take them. But in my case, it was just slightly different, although I didn't know the people. My mother had worked with a lady from Fermanagh, and she knew this family, and they were required to take an evacuee, so I was elected to go to them. But I didn't know them, nor did they know us. But it was a wonderful relationship. They had two daughters, but they weren't children. In fact, the older daughter was making arrangements for her wedding, and the other daughter was 18. I was 10. Florrie was 18. So I was regarded sort of as her little sister, and we got on very well, mostly. They had a big farm. And they were farmers in a very good way. And my foster mother, as I would call her, she had been a professional cook in America and had come home to be married. And of course, in Belfast we had the rationing. Things were very short. In Fermanagh she had her kitchen garden, she had her fruit bushes, she had her orchard. And what was not the like? I do remember the food. Oh yes, I do, because I mean, food was very sparse, you know, during the war, and we were rationed. And I mean, your mother, whoever was doing the cooking, just had to make the best of things. But no, there was plenty of, like all those lovely butter and eggs and cream. It was a lifelong friendship. It was, yes. Yeah. They were at my wedding. So it was a good relationship. Mm. Not all evacuees were as lucky as that, and some farmers were not lucky in the evacuees that they got. You know, so I mean, I was just very fortunate. I took to it just like a duck to water. I'm very fond of animals, and they had a big Clydesdale called Bob, and they had a dog called Jeff and a cat called Daisy. And then they had barn cats who didn't come into the house. They kept the vermin down in the barns. They had pigs, cows. We always had 12 ducks, always had 12 ducks. And we used to incubate them in the incubator, the little eggs, and then the little ducklings would have come out, and I loved all of this. I loved it. I collected the eggs, and I would have helped to churn the butter, and I would have fed the hens. And I used to go out to the hayfield, but I don't know how much help I was really, at 10, but I loved it.